the numbers and do so with friend of the program, Cam Mellor of the Pro Football Sports Network. He is a spreadsheet sensation, if you will, knows where to look, what numbers matter, and certainly as it pertains to BYU in the Big 12 Conference. Cam, how are you this morning?
I'm terrific. As we were saying, it's spreadsheet sensation. I've not been called that officially, but I'll absolutely take it. I'll gladly accept said moniker going forward.
All right, I can appreciate that. So with that in mind, and having looked at so many spreadsheets and so many numbers, I know it's only 2, maybe 3 games into the season for most college football teams. Specific to BYU, what have you learned about BYU in their 2 games played?
The defense is tough. I think no matter what way you boil it down, preseason expectations for this defense were probably pretty high, but I think, sure, take into consideration the strength of the opponent for the first 2 games. They've exceeded those expectations and have probably set even higher expectations as the season goes along. What we aim to do with our numbers and that I've created is to look at the stability of them and avoid a lot of the noise. And you look at what factors into a good grade are those things that replicate themselves from week over week to week to week, season to season. And that's what BYU has done a great job of so far, 2 games in, proving our metrics correct, but also winning football games with their defensive recipe.
So what are you seeing that is sustainable, that maintainable? We were just talking about some of the ridiculous defensive numbers that BYU is putting up right now. What do you see that they can keep doing?
Overall, it's everything defensively so far that's gone into it. It's the yards per play that they're allowing is because they're getting pressure on the quarterback and pressure on the opposing offensive line in both run and pass situations, pushing the offensive lines up the field or back the field, depending on which way you look at it. And ultimately, it's cohesive football that we have numbers on. It's offensive rush success rate that they've allowed, and then a defensive pass success rate that they've sustained as well. Both of those are in the top 20 in the country. And those are the metrics, no matter the strength of the opponent, because we have these adjusted metrics, adjusted numbers that look at the opponents, and BYU is still top 20 no matter which way you fold it. And so the success rate of the cohesive nature of all 11 players for 2 weeks has been astronomical for what we thought we would see this season.
It is interesting when you assess the level of competition, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that things will inevitably get much tougher for BYU in the next 4 games, beginning with at East Carolina in a little over a week, and then you get into Big 12 play, and then the back 6 look really tough, Cam. So how should fans of BYU manage expectations with those astronomical numbers you're talking about, knowing that it's going to get a lot tougher?
Yes, it gets a lot tougher, but that's where I like to look at what helps sustain defensive success, because this is going to be the defense that has to carry them. Do they have to be like that, 2001 Miami Hurricanes defense that they would have gone 8-4 without the offense scoring a touchdown? No, they don't have to be that good, because we have some numbers on offense that indicate some positive success going forward. We'll get into, I'm sure, those later, and specifically him later at running back. But to me, they need to continue to play that comprehensive football across the board, all front 7 to the back 7. When you divide the linebackers up, they need to continue to get pressure without blitzing and allow their base pass rush to do what they've been able to do so far against much better offensive lines. Maybe not against ECU in 2 weeks, or a week and a half, but as the season goes along, the offensive lines will get significantly better. So if they can maintain that pass rush that they have, the base pass rush, and get pressure without blitzing, that allows obviously for more defenders in coverage and keeps that success rate up.
The defense is awesome. Special teams has frankly been incredible again for BYU so far. Offensively, certainly some good things, some room to improve. What are you seeing from the BYU offense and Bear Bachmire?
Yes, so Bear's done what he needs to do, right? It's one of those situations. I'll go back to that 0-1 Miami Hurricanes team that Ken Dorsey was the quarterback, and they won all the games with Ken Dorsey at quarterback, doing not a whole lot. He was the afterthought, and that's shocking. Not saying Bear will be the afterthought of this team, because I think we've seen a couple of throws and a couple of decisions that you like to see going forward. Limit some of those slower processing reads, and then ultimately just get the ball in space to the playmakers. And I think the biggest discrepancy so far is that we've seen a couple of pretty bad drops. I believe we're at just over 14% of the catchable passes thrown by Bear Bachmire himself have been dropped. So we need to get better play from the wide receivers overall. But Bear, to me, has played that mistake-free, keep the offense on schedule, not have to do too much. Don't be Superman. Go out there and run the offense like you know how to run it. And this is things will shake out fortuitously for them.
He is Cam Mellor. He works for Pro Football Sports Network. And again, as we have established, he is the spreadsheet sensation on BYU today. A lot happening there with that phrase for sure, Cam. What do you feel it would take for BYU football to do this year that would make you think they're on par with the 11-2 Cougars last year, or maybe even a little bit better than last year?
I won't put foot in mouth here, but I will say absolutely the defense looks to be better. And I think that's where maybe the discrepancies as the season went along, obviously, as injuries will take hold and the nature of the attrition of a football roster will happen. To me, this team seems deeper on defense. So I think what they need to do to be better than last year, or at least on par with last year, is continue to cohesively block up front and allow Bear to be that quarterback that runs that simplified offense, and then eventually start opening the playbook as we get a little bit more comfortable. Just maintain health, because I think right now, as long as what I just said earlier too about wide receivers, if we can get a few more plays from the receivers, a few more splash plays, right now the special teams and defense playing like they are, this is a better team than last year already.
Is there a scenario in the win-loss category that BYU could not get to 11 wins, yet you still feel like they're a more quality team this year than they were last year?
I do think so, and I think that probably speaks more volumes to the level of competition in the Big 12, because I think you probably drop one or two of those games and still sit there at 10-2 with probably a better roster on paper, a better performing roster on all of those, except maybe one of those two games that they do drop, if they did drop a game. So yes, I think cohesively, as long as the team starts to pick up in the areas that they're lapsing in reach or get closer to how well the defense is performing, and as long as that continues, I mean, there are some of these things, but Bears play when protected and clean in the pocket is up there with Sam Levitt for not against the Mississippi State, but previously in his previous season last year, where Levitt was, exceeded expectations. That's where we're seeing so far through two games, and that is one of our most stable metrics. So I think keeping him protected and going forward that way, you absolutely can look and say maybe a 10-2 team in the regular season is a better team still, no matter the record.
10 wins would be awesome. I am here for it. Who are the top 5 graded players on BYU's team right now, according to the sheets?
The sheets, and I checked these. I double checked them and then triple checked them, and I wrote them down. So forgive me for reading. I had to get them right. So you have left tackle Isaiah Jada as your number 1 graded player so far, and I think there's a lot of people that will get their eyes open to his level of play if he continues that as the season goes along, not just for potentially some individual awards, but for the NFL draft. And then, so I'll go down the list then. LJ Martin, Andrew Gentry, and then the usual suspects on defense, Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glatsker. Those are your top 5 graded players currently.
So the 2 tackles in the top 3, that's a big deal because they're new starters for BYU. Obviously, Gentry from Michigan was a really nice pickup, a guy that started to start last season, got a Liz Frank, he's back. And then, of course, Isaiah Jada from Colorado played a little bit last year. What does that mean for BYU that 2 of the top 3 so far, and LJ Martin, of course, are newcomers essentially in the starting lineup that have had a massive impact?
Yeah, it's the new wave of college football where you have to usher in transfer portal athletes quickly. You cannot, it's no longer you get them and sit them and let them learn and then let them play eventually. You have to get these players in and get them acclimated quickly. And I think maybe the tide turns for a Kalani Sitake head coach team that is a portal team potentially going forward. We've seen some success, obviously, in previous years with previous positions, but to get tackles in, it's not an easy position for them to usher in and allow them and then see the fruits of their labor in such a high success rate. So yes, take the defenses that they've played a little bit with the greatest salt, but again, we adjust to the opponent, and they've been that good through 2 games against maybe not quite inferior competition, but absolutely not the best competition. But even with the adjustments, they're still up there among the best in the country at both tackle spots.
Cam, interestingly enough, in that list of 5 players you just laid out for us, there is not a mention of Keanu Tanuvasa, who, according to some NFL experts, is, in their opinion, the most draftable prospect on this BYU team. Where do you see Keanu in that conversation among the others that you feel will be drafted?
He's up there in the grades. He's not quite top 5, but actually, so our grades, are typically they're college football oriented. So how well do they perform on a Saturday or Friday or Sunday, Monday, depending on what day of the week we're playing in week 0 to week 1. He's there. He's in the top 10 of the top graded players. But right now, our draft prospects, our draft analysts actually have him as the 2nd most draftable player, the 2nd highest ranked player on our draft boards. And I think that probably speaks volumes to not necessarily having to do a whole lot from the interior in terms of a college football grade. But what he does is eat up the double teams. He can beat pressure or he can get pressure quickly up the middle. And we found that interior pressure is significantly more valuable than pressure on the outside. And so a guy like him that consistently win his battles with either the center or the guards, even if he kicks outside a little bit to a battle against tackles, we've seen him win so fast and so well that the draftniks have already caught on. They know he's there. He's right behind LJ Martin, actually, as the second most draftable prospect right now on the BYU roster.
I love to hear that, especially with the running backs BYU's produced over the last couple of years in the NFL. Let's talk about the next game for BYU. Bye week this week, at ECU next week, who loves to chuck it. What are you seeing in this matchup?
They love to chuck it. Honestly, I think Keaton Hauser is a quarterback. He's like a Brett Favre in the sense he's not afraid to throw it everywhere, anywhere, and at any point. And so you have to get pressure on him, because that's where we've seen the struggles, is that this team, they don't quite have the playmakers like they used to have, or that maybe ECU fans have gotten used to. It's a tough environment to play on the road there, and the Carolinas are not quite friendly to BYU in years past. So go in there with a little bit of knowledge that this is probably the best offensive line that they're going to face, and probably the most pass-happy offensive unit that they're going to face all season long, until maybe Arizona State, if that matchup comes to fruition with full rosters. But yeah, ECU, they don't get a lot of pressure up front, and they've struggled to stop the run. So I expect to see a lot of LJ Martin and maybe even Bear keeping the ball a little bit more times this game.
2-0 BYU, as we mentioned, at East Carolina next. Then you open up with 3 Big 12 games at Colorado, West Virginia at home, and at Arizona. We believe that BYU will be favored in all of those games, Cam. So what are your expectations for BYU through the first half of the season when it comes to the win-loss record?
The one that scares me is at Arizona. If I'm a BYU fan, I probably can't hide it anymore. I will always root for the Cougs at this point.
Yes, sir.
We knew it.
Yes, sir. I can't lie. No, at this point, the one that scares me is at Arizona, because I think if we get to this point with Noah Fafita throwing like he has been throwing, and the inclusion of their new transfer portal receiver, and I think that what they've been able to do, they're not quite going to be better without McMillan at receiver, but they do have more options, and Fafita's looked a little bit better without having to throw to his best right all the time at receiver. And so Arizona scares me a little bit. I would still say 6-0 by the end of that game.
Let's go. Cam Mellor on BYU Sports Nation. In 15 seconds, Cam, how can BYU fans and college football fans find more of your spreadsheet awesomeness?
Spreadsheet awesomeness coming soon to a desktop or mobile phone near you. We will have dashboards with all of our grades available, actually. So it'll be profootballnetwork.com and on Twitter at Cam Mellor, the easiest place. I will share all of the information, probably too much information. So Spreadsheet Sensation will overshare the information for you.
I love it. Great to catch up with you. We appreciate the time and the insight.
Thanks, Cam.
And my pleasure. My pleasure, guys. Thanks as always.
Cam Mellor, awesome, man. I love that info. Check out the newest episode of the Deep Blue podcast featuring men's basketball director of player development, Jordan Brady, as he shares experiences that have helped shape him during his basketball journey. You can find it wherever you get podcasts.
After the break, BYU men's basketball going back to Maui. Details on that. Plus, women's volleyball faces their first big test of the season, and more Big 12 weekly awards for the Cougars. All of that discussed in headlines next on BYUsn.
BYU Sports Nation is brought to you by the BYU Store, official outfitter of